We live in the age of progress. We have access to information like never before. Technology connects us instantly, and the promise of individual freedom finally seems within reach. But then, why have we never been so anxious, so overwhelmed, so empty? Modern society has sold us an idea of success that, instead of freeing us, has imprisoned us. We work tirelessly to achieve a standard of living that has been imposed on us. We buy things we don't need to impress people we barely know. We spend more time looking at screens than at the eyes of those we love. And the worst thing of all, we believe that this is normal. The great deception of modernity lies not in its technological achievements or scientific advances, but in the illusion that we are in control, when in fact we have been programmed to follow a predefined path. We have never had so much autonomy, and, at the same time, we have never been so alienated. But how did this happen? How are we led to believe that this is the only way to live? In this video, we'll dismantle the lies we've been told and explore how we can regain the freedom that, deep down, we should never have lost. We live in a world where an individual's worth is measured by their ability to produce. From an early age, we learn that our time needs to be put to good use, that being busy is synonymous with success, and that resting is almost a sin. If we're not working, we're wasting time. If we're not being productive, we're failing. But has this obsession with efficiency really led to a better life? Modernity promised us freedom, but delivered a new form of slavery, the dictatorship of productivity. Now, we are no longer forced to work. We force ourselves. We wake up early, follow an exhausting routine, and, even after work, we feel guilty for not producing more. If we have free time, we feel the need to fill it with some useful activity. Get busy, they say. Don't waste time. The result? A tired, anxious, and mentally exhausted society. South Korean philosopher Byung-Chul describes this reality as performance society fatigue. Unlike past eras, when work was an external imposition, today we exploit ourselves. There's no cruel boss shouting orders. There's an app reminding us of deadlines. There's a culture that glorifies sacrifice. There's a social media feed where everyone seems to be doing more than us. We work because we want to be better, more efficient, more competitive. But at what cost? Studies show that this mentality is making us sick. The number of people diagnosed with burnout has risen dramatically in recent decades. In a world where rest is seen as a luxury, not a necessity, exhaustion has become a permanent state. We sleep little, eat fast, live on the run, and yet it never seems enough. And the most perverse thing, all this is sold as freedom. Today, we can work from anywhere, but in practice, this means that we are always working. Technology has given us incredible tools to optimize our tasks, but instead of using this free time to live better, we simply accumulate more obligations. And so we go on, running without knowing where, trying to achieve an idea of success that never comes. But what if we're wrong? What if extreme productivity isn't the way to a fulfilling life? Have we been fooled into believing that work alone defines us? Perhaps it's time to question this model and rediscover a balance that really makes sense. Modern society has taught us that we are what we buy. From an early age, we are bombarded with messages associating happiness and success with the possession of material goods. The car you drive, the clothes you wear, the technological devices you carry in your pocket. All of this is not just consumption, but a construction of your identity. You don't just buy a product, you buy a status, an idea of who you should be. Marketing has learned to manipulate our emotions surgically. Advertisements don't sell objects, they sell lifestyles. A perfume isn't just a fragrance, it's a promise of seduction and confidence. An expensive watch is not just an accessory, it is a symbol of sophistication and power. Even the most banal products, such as a simple coffee, are transformed into experiences that define who we are. And so we fall into the trap. We come to see ourselves through what we own. This consumption model is sustained by a vicious cycle. We buy to feel good, but the satisfaction is temporary. The pleasure of a new acquisition is short-lived, and we are then encouraged to want something new. And so we continue on an endless quest, accumulating objects in the hope of filling a void that never goes away. This emptiness is no coincidence. Existentialist philosophy suggests that throughout life, we search for meaning in our existence. In the past, this meaning came from religion, community, and a connection with nature. Today, with the decline of these references, society offers us an alternative: consumption. But this solution is superficial. It keeps us busy, but never satisfied. And the most worrying thing? We are so immersed in the system that we don't even realize how much it shapes our worldview. Social networks amplify this logic, turning our lives into carefully edited shop windows. We want to appear successful, even if behind the photos we are exhausted and unhappy. We seek external validation in likes and comments, as if our self-esteem depended on the approval of others. But are we just consumers? Can our identity be reduced to what we buy? Perhaps it's time to look beyond the illusion, to question whether we really need everything we want. Because at the end of the day, what we own will never be able to define who we really are. We live in the age of hyperconnectivity. It's never been easier to communicate with someone on the other side of the world. Social networks allow us to share moments, send instant messages, and follow the lives of friends and family in real time. But in the midst of so much connection, a frightening contradiction emerges. We've never been so alone. Technology promised us closeness, but delivered isolation. We spend hours sliding our finger across the screen, consuming quick content, interacting with posts, and feeling a false sense of belonging. But when the cell phone is switched off, the silence is deafening. The loneliness we try to avoid returns with force, because digital connections are no substitute for real human contact. And the most dangerous thing, we don't even realize what's happening. The human mind wasn't designed to process hundreds of superficial interactions a day. In the past, relationships were built on depth, on face-to-face conversations, on bonds that took years to strengthen. Today, everything has become quick, disposable. If someone bothers us, we block them. If a dialogue requires effort, we abandon it. We've created a world where everything can be replaced, even people. Psychologist Sherry Turkle calls this networked loneliness. We are always connected, but increasingly distant. Messaging has replaced live conversation. Emojis have taken the place of body language. Video calls try to imitate physical presence, but never manage to capture the essence of a real encounter. And, little by little, we become strangers to those around us. This illusion of connection even affects our identity. Social networks have turned us into characters. We create idealized versions of ourselves, editing our lives to appear more interesting, happier, more successful. But this mask comes at a price. The more we strive to look like something we're not, the further we distance ourselves from our true essence. The psychological impact of this is profound. Studies show that excessive use of social media is directly linked to increased anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy. We are constantly comparing ourselves to lives that aren't real, to filtered versions of reality. We feel we're never good enough because there's always someone prettier, richer, happier on the screen. But are we willing to give up real connection for this digital illusion? Is it worth exchanging authentic relationships for superficial interactions? Perhaps it's time to rethink how we use technology, to recover the depth of relationships, and to remember that, in the end, nothing replaces the look, the touch, and the real presence of someone who really cares. Imagine a thirsty man walking through the desert. He spots an oasis in the distance and runs towards it, only to discover that it was a mirage. But in desperation, He keeps chasing the next reflection of water on the horizon, never finding relief. This is the perfect metaphor for the way modern society has conditioned us to seek pleasure. We live in the age of instant reward. Everything needs to be quick, accessible, and easy. If we're bored, we slide our finger across the screen and find instant entertainment. If we feel insecure, we post a photo and wait for the likes to validate our self-esteem. If we're anxious, we order food, buy something online, or distract ourselves with short videos. It's never been easier to relieve discomfort. And at the same time, we've never been so addicted to this need for constant stimulation. The problem is that this unbridled quest for immediate pleasure comes at a cost. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains that when we get used to quick rewards, our brains become less sensitive to genuine, lasting pleasure. We release dopamine all the time, watching videos, playing games, consuming content nonstop. And as a result, the truly meaningful moments lose their impact. Food loses its flavor. Conversations become tedious. Real life seems dull compared to the endless stream of artificial stimuli. This explains why many people feel a constant emptiness. They are always chasing the next dose of pleasure, the next like, next episode, the next purchase, but they never feel truly satisfied. Immediate pleasure has become a trap, making us impatient and unable to find happiness in the little things. But are we really living or just reacting to stimuli? Can we enjoy a quiet moment without picking up our cell phones? Do we know how to wait without feeling anxious? These are essential questions for anyone who wants to escape this vicious cycle and regain control of their life. Now, I want to know from you. Have you noticed how the search for immediate pleasure affects your routine? Have you ever found yourself addicted to quick stimuli without realizing it? Leave a comment and share your experience. Oh, and if this video is making you think, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps this content reach more people. If we've never had so many options, why do we feel so lost? Modern society has promised us total freedom. We can choose our profession, where to live, how to dress, and what lifestyle to follow. Unlike past generations, who often had their paths mapped out by their environment and tradition, today we are masters of our own destiny. But ironically, this freedom has paralyzed us. The excess of choices, instead of empowering us, overwhelms us. The philosopher Zygmunt Bauman called this liquid modernity, an era where nothing is solid, nothing is permanent, and everything seems fleeting. Relationships come and go. Careers change constantly. Ideals are discarded as quickly as they were adopted. In the midst of this instability, many people feel adrift, without a clear purpose for their lives. This explains the epidemic of dissatisfaction plaguing our generation. We've never had so much stimulation, but we've also never been so bored. We've never had so much comfort, but we've never felt so empty. We've never had so much access to information, but we still don't have any answers. The problem is not a lack of opportunities, but the absence of a greater meaning to guide our choices. Jean-Paul Sartre said that we are condemned to freedom. Unlike animals who only follow their instincts, human beings need to give meaning to their existence. But in a society where traditional values have been weakened and human connections are increasingly fragile, many no longer know where to find this meaning. The consequence of this is the emergence of increasingly early existential crises. Young adults, even at the beginning of their lives, already feel exhausted, as if they are getting old before their time. They try everything: travel, meet people, change jobs, seek new experiences, but nothing seems to fill the void. The reason? The search for the meaning of life cannot be satisfied by the external alone. It requires deep introspection, real contact with our essence. Modern society distracts us from ourselves. The constant noise of social media, work, entertainment, and consumption prevents us from asking ourselves the difficult question: who are we? Beyond the expectations that others project onto us, what do we really want? Beyond what we've been taught to desire? These answers can't be bought or delivered by algorithms. They require silence, reflection, and the courage to step out of the fast flow of modernity and look inwards. If everything we were taught about success, happiness, and fulfillment was an illusion, then what is the truth? How can we escape this vicious cycle of excessive productivity, unbridled consumerism, superficial connections, and immediate pleasure? The answer doesn't lie in following yet another method, guru, or new trend. It lies in recovering something that modernity has taken away from us, the ability to think for ourselves. The first step to awakening is to question. Question what we consider normal. Question our beliefs, our habits, our lifestyle. Do we want what we want because it really makes sense to us, or because we've been programmed to want it? Do we want the car of the year because it will bring us comfort, or because we've been led to believe that it will make us more respected? Do we work nonstop because we enjoy what we do, or because we've been told that we need to be productive all the time in order to be valuable? Philosophy has always defended critical thinking as an essential tool for freedom. Socrates said that an unexamined life is not worth living. And yet, we live exactly the opposite. We spend our days on autopilot without reflecting on the reasons behind our choices. The system keeps us busy enough that we never have time to stop and question. The second step is to regain control over our time. Modern society has made us believe that time is money and that we should use it productively. But is the only use of time to generate profit? What if, instead of trying to fill it with more tasks, we started to value it for what it really is, the essence of life? This means slowing down, making room for creative leisure, for contemplation, for real presence in the simplest moments of everyday life. The third step is to rebuild authentic relationships. Technology has brought us incredible facilities, but it has also distanced us from each other. Reclaiming real human contact, conversations without distractions, unhurried encounters, connections without filters, is a powerful way of reframing our existence. Deep relationships remind us that we are not alone, that we are more than consumers or workers. We are human beings, and our essence cannot be reduced to what we produce or own. Awakening to the truth doesn't mean rejecting modernity or fleeing into a cave. It means using it with awareness. It means recognizing that there is a system at work to keep us distracted and dependent, and deliberately choosing not to be just another cog in the wheel. It's an individual process that requires courage, because breaking out of the flow imposed by society often means going against the current. But those who wake up discover something that few remember. True freedom doesn't lie in having more, doing more, or being more. It lies in regaining the right to live according to one's own truth. Knowing that we have been deceived by modern society is the first step. But what do we do with this information? How do we get out of the system that keeps us trapped in consumption, extreme productivity, the search for immediate pleasure, and the illusion of digital connection? The answer doesn't lie in magic solution, but in a conscious process of reclaiming our own autonomy. The first step is to redefine what success means to you. Throughout our lives, we have been taught to follow a pre-established script: study, work, earn money, buy goods, seek status. But what if this definition of success doesn't make sense to you? What if, in your case, success means having more time for your family, or living with fewer material possessions but more freedom, or simply not being stuck in an exhausting rhythm that destroys your mental health? Breaking with the traditional model takes courage, but it's also liberating. The second step is to learn to say no. Modern society feeds on our need for acceptance. We feel pressured to accept every invitation, to consume every novelty, to respond to every message immediately. But do we always need to be available? Do we need to overload ourselves to meet external expectations? Saying no is an act of resistance, a reminder that your life belongs to you and not to the world around you. The third step is to simplify. Minimalism isn't just about having less stuff. It's about being clearer about what really matters. When we eliminate excesses, be they objects, commitments, or even thoughts, we find space for what really does us good. This can mean reducing your dependence on your cell phone, spending less time on social networks, limiting your exposure to empty content, or even adopting a less consumer-centric lifestyle. The fourth step is to regain contact with reality. The digital world has distanced us from nature, from authentic relationships, and even from ourselves. Getting back into the habit of reading a book without interruptions, walking without looking at your cell phone, having unhurried conversations, all this reconnects us with the essence of life. Small gestures like cooking your own food, practicing a hobby for pleasure rather than productivity, or simply enjoying silence can completely transform the way we live. The final step is to accept that change is an ongoing process. There is no endpoint, no moment when you are fully awake. Modern society will always try to pull you back into the routine of consumption and distraction. But every small conscious choice, every no said firmly, every moment of genuine presence, every decision made of your own free will and not because of external influence is an act of liberation. Regaining control of one's life doesn't mean running away from modernity, but learning to navigate it without being carried away by the current. It's a lonely path because few are willing to question the system. But those who choose this journey discover something valuable. True freedom does not lie in what we are sold, but in what we choose for ourselves. If we've made it this far, it means that something in this video resonated with you. Perhaps you've noticed how modern society keeps us distracted, consuming without thinking, working without rest, seeking ephemeral pleasures to fill a void that never goes away. Perhaps you've recognized patterns in your own life and felt that nagging feeling that something is wrong, but you never knew exactly. The truth is that we have been conditioned to accept this model of life without question. We've been taught that we have to be productive all the time, that our value lies in what we own, that technology brings us closer together, when in reality, it isolates us. We were sold the idea that happiness means having more, doing more, being more. But now we know that this is a carefully constructed illusion. And knowing this changes everything, because once we see the truth, we can't go back. From now on, every decision we make, from how we spend our time to what we choose to consume, can be made more consciously. We can regain our autonomy, redefine what really matters, and above all, live more authentically. But this reflection can't stop here. We need to spread this message so that more people wake up to this reality. So if this video made sense to you, leave a like. It helps the content reach more people. If you want to support the channel and ensure that more videos like this are produced, consider making a donation. Any amount makes a difference and allows us to continue bringing deep reflections to you. And finally, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Perhaps a friend who is feeling lost, a family member who is exhausted, trying to keep up with this insane pace, or anyone who needs reminding that there is another way than the one that has been imposed on us. Change begins with awareness. And now that you have it, what will you do with it?